Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be going over our West region predictions for my March Madness bracket. The last region we're going to do in my March Madness predictions, I already have my East, South, and Midwest regions predicted and uploaded already. Make sure to go check those out if you haven't. Got some shockers and surprises in the Final Four, some upset picks here and there. But we're going to get right into this region, the West region, headed by the Gonzaga Bulldogs. But make sure, if you haven't checked out the Midwest, South, and East region predictions, make sure to go check this out. I'm going to kick this off. First four matchups here. Prairie View A&M, I think that they will defeat Farley Dickinson. In St. John's, I think that they will defeat Arizona State. I like to give attention to the first four games, especially considering that under the radar, first four teams have won three of the last four, have won a first-round matchup in 3 of the last 4 years. So I think that deserves a little more attention. I don't think the 16 seeds, I don't think it's going to happen over there. I do think Gonzaga going to get it done. 8-seeded Syracuse, I think they're going to win the next matchup. I just think Baylor, they're coming out of the Big 12 Conference, which hasn't been as good as a lot of people thought it would be. Definitely not as good as it was last year. There were definitely some questions, a lot concerning around the Big 12 pretty much all season. So I think that Syracuse has proven themselves a little more, and I think they deserve to move on and face Gonzaga in a very intriguing second-round matchup game. Next, we got Marquette, Murray State. I'm picking a 12/5 here. I got Murray State moving on, led by John Morant. I think Murray State, that they have really proven themselves this year. They have had a nice stretch of games to end the season. Marquette, to end the season, that they have not looked like the Marquette that was at the beginning of the season. They have not looked like the Marcus Howard does not look like the Marcus Howard that he could be. And John Morant, they have looked, in Murray State, they have looked fantastic down the stretch. Marquette has looked awful down the stretch. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. They have looked awful down the stretch. I think that a lot of momentum is going to come into this game, be the deciding factor. I think Murray State has more than momentum. That's the deciding factor. I'm picking Murray State. Next, we got Florida State, Vermont. Florida State with a big 10-point win over Virginia in the ACC tournament, just losing the ACC tournament championship game to the Duke Blue Devils. I think that Florida State is very good right now, even though they're facing a Vermont team that I really thought, if they got the right draw, that they would win a game. This is definitely not the right draw for Vermont to win a first-round game. Next, we got Buffalo, St. John's. I'm going to pick Buffalo here. Buffalo winning their first NCAA tournament game last year, defeating Arizona. I think that they're going to be facing a St. John's team right here. I just think Buffalo, they're too good. They have a possibility to make it a ways in the tournament, but there's definitely some competition in the bottom half of the West region bracket. Texas Tech, Northern Kentucky. I'm going to pick Texas Tech to move on here. Texas Tech has been a pretty good team all year, winning a share of the regular season title in the Big 12. Though they did lose to West Virginia in the Big 12 tournament, I think Texas Tech can bounce back, and they definitely have the potential to go as far as they did last year in the tournament, which was the Elite 8 round. Nevada, Florida, this is a very intriguing matchup here. Nevada, who has been consistent all year, just until the end of the season, where they just kind of were on a downward trend. Florida State, end of season, upward trend. That's where a lot of picks are made. I'm not making that pick here because I'm going to go off of what happened last year. Nevada, last year, same thing, downward trend, lost in the quarterfinals of the Mountain West Conference Tournament. We all know that they made it to the Sweet 16 as a surprise team. I think they're going to defeat the Florida Gators. And it's going to be kind of similar to last year. Might be foreshadowing a later pick. Michigan, Montana, 2 seed over the 5 seed. Pretty self-explanatory right there. Gonzaga, Syracuse. A lot of people are going to want to pick Syracuse. I think Rui Hachimura and the Gonzaga Bulldogs are going to be too much for Syracuse to handle. Tyus Battle. I think that Syracuse narrowly loses this game. Florida State, Murray State. I think the Florida State is riding just a little more momentum, and their team is definitely better than the Murray State Racers. I think Florida State's got every aspect of the game on their side in this. I think Florida State wins this game, not by a large margin, but I definitely think that they control most of the game, especially the tempo and everything that happens. Texas Tech, Buffalo. A lot of people want to pick Buffalo. I want to pick Texas Tech because Texas Tech is an underrated team, in my opinion, in college basketball. Gave the Duke Blue Devils a run for their money, though they didn't win the game, of course. Duke is very hard to beat, especially when they were 100%, and they were 100% when Texas Tech faced them. I think Texas Tech does defeat Buffalo in this matchup. Texas Tech moving on to the Sweet 16. Nevada, Michigan. I got Nevada pulling off the upset here. Wolfpack made it to the Sweet 16 2 years in a row. Last year, they defeated 2-seeded Cincinnati to make it to the Sweet 16. This year, they beat a much bigger giant. They slay a much bigger giant in the Michigan Wolverines. 2 years in a row, 7-seed Nevada makes it to the Sweet 16 in my bracket. Gonzaga, Florida State. I'm going to have Gonzaga moving on, despite a lot of people saying Florida State's going to move on. I think that Florida State faced a Virginia team that has a lot of questions surrounding their credibility. Even though they've had some fantastic wins, I always have been a big questioner in Virginia's credibility. And they always lose it towards the end of the season, especially when it comes tournament time. I think that they lost their credibility with that Florida State game. That's why I have them going where I do in my South region predictions if you want to go check out how far I had them going out, but how far I had them in the tournament. I think Gonzaga does win this game, though, narrowly knocking off Florida State. Texas Tech, Nevada. I think Nevada once again gets knocked out in the Sweet 16. Texas Tech ends up moving on. I do think Texas Tech, again, the Red Raiders, one of the more underrated teams in college basketball. They do go on to face Gonzaga, and for the second year in a row, sorry to say it, Red Raiders fans, I've got Gonzaga moving on to the Final Four here, my Final Four team. I think Gonzaga, Rui Hachimura has been a fantastic player all the college basketball season. I do think that Gonzaga moves on to the Final Four here. They have been a great team all year that they have shown. And they have fought for every little thing that they've gotten all year. A win over a 100% Duke team, though they did lose to St. Mary's towards the end of the season, and they did lose to, I believe it was Tennessee earlier in the year on a neutral floor. But that's going to wrap it up for my West Region predictions. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check out my East, South, and Midwest region predictions if you haven't seen those already. I got some shockers in those. There's one region, though, that it's almost kind of like a lot of chalk matchups, though there is a surprise in the Elite Eight for sure. But make sure to check those out if you haven't. Final Four video should be coming up very soon. And if you haven't seen my Final Four, it's going to be kind of a doozy and kind of a shocker to a lot of people. But that's going to wrap it up for the video, guys. And until next time, again, thank you for watching my West Region predictions of my 2019 March Madness bracket.